The Christmas night my fiancé crossed the line, I made him face the truth. The festive gathering. Maya adjusted the red scarf around her neck as Ethan pulled into the driveway of his childhood home. White lights draped every corner of the two-story house, and through the frosted windows, she could see silhouettes moving in rhythm with festive music. Her stomach fluttered with nervous excitement. This would be her first Christmas with his entire family, and she desperately wanted to make a good impression. "You look beautiful," Ethan said, squeezing her hand. His hazel eyes sparkled with something she couldn't quite name. Pride, perhaps, or maybe anticipation. She smiled, leaning over to kiss his cheek, tasting the faint scent of his cologne mixed with winter air. Inside, the house buzzed with warmth and laughter. Ethan's mother, Patricia, embraced Maya like a long-lost daughter, pulling her into the kitchen where the scent of cinnamon and roasted turkey filled every corner. His younger sister, Sophie, immediately began chatting about wedding plans, her enthusiasm infectious. Maya felt herself relaxing, the tension in her shoulders melting away as she sipped mulled wine and helped arrange cookies on festive platters. The living room glowed with golden light from the massive Christmas tree in the corner. Relatives she'd only met through photographs came forward with hugs and questions. Maya answered them all graciously, feeling Ethan's arm around her waist, anchoring her to this new world she was joining. Then the doorbell rang. Ethan stiffened beside her, his grip tightening slightly. Patricia rushed to answer, and moments later, a stunning woman with chestnut hair and emerald eyes walked through the door. Claire. Maya had seen her in old photographs, heard her name mentioned in passing stories, but Ethan had always insisted it was ancient history. Claire's gaze swept the room before landing on Ethan. Her smile was polite but knowing. "I hope you don't mind," she said sweetly. "Sophie invited me. We've stayed close over the years." The room's temperature seemed to drop several degrees despite the roaring fireplace. The betrayal unveiled. The evening progressed with forced normalcy. Maya tried to ignore the way Claire positioned herself near Ethan, laughing at his jokes with a familiarity that made Maya's chest tighten. She helped serve dinner, accepted compliments on the cranberry sauce she'd brought, and smiled until her cheeks ached. After dessert, everyone gathered in the living room. Ethan's father suggested they play a traditional family game, sharing the most embarrassing moment of the year. It started innocently enough, with Sophie confessing she'd worn mismatched shoes to a job interview, and Ethan's uncle admitting he'd locked himself out of his car 3 times in 1 week. When it came to Ethan's turn, Maya noticed him glance at Claire, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor, her attention fixed on him with an encouraging smile. Something flickered across his face, insecurity, perhaps, or the old desire to impress. "Well," Ethan began, his voice taking on a theatrical tone, "I have a good one, but it's actually about Maya." Her blood ran cold. "So, a few months ago, we were at this fancy restaurant for her birthday, right? And Maya has this thing, she gets really anxious in crowded places. Like, panic attack anxious." Maya's vision blurred. No, he wouldn't. She started hyperventilating so badly that the waiter thought she was choking. They almost called an ambulance. She was mortified, crying in the bathroom for 20 minutes while I had to explain to everyone that she just gets overwhelmed sometimes. I felt so bad, but honestly, the waiter's face was priceless. Laughter erupted around the room. Not cruel laughter, but the thoughtless kind that comes from people who don't understand the weight of what they've just heard. Maya sat frozen, her hands gripping her wine glass so tightly she thought it might shatter. Claire's eyes found hers, and in them, Maya saw something like pity mixed with triumph. The room spun. Her most vulnerable moment, the night she'd cried in his arms about her anxiety disorder, the secret she'd trusted him with, he'd turned it into entertainment. The confrontation. Maya stood abruptly, mumbling something about needing air. She didn't wait for responses, didn't care about the confused looks following her as she grabbed her coat and escaped through the back door into the garden. Snow was falling steadily now, covering the ground in a pristine blanket that seemed to mock the chaos inside her heart. She walked to the far end of the garden where a wooden bench sat beneath a bare oak tree. Her breath came in shaky gasps, fog forming in the cold air. How could he? How could the man she'd agreed to marry betray her trust so casually, so publicly? "Maya, wait." Ethan's voice cut through the silence. She heard his footsteps crunching in the snow behind her but didn't turn around. Come on, it's freezing out here. Come back inside. Don't. Her voice was sharp, cutting. Don't tell me what to do right now. He came around to face her, his expression a mixture of confusion and dawning guilt. What's wrong? I was just sharing a funny story. Funny? She whirled on him, tears streaming down her face. You think my panic attack was funny? You think humiliating me in front of your entire family, in front of her, was appropriate? Her. What does Claire have to do with everything? Maya's voice cracked. You wanted to impress her. I saw the way you looked at her before you spoke. You threw me under the bus to make yourself look like the patient, understanding boyfriend dealing with his crazy fiancé. Ethan's face paled. That's not, I didn't mean it like that. It was just a story. It was my story. Mine. I told you about that night in confidence because I trusted you. I shared my struggles with anxiety because I thought you understood, that you'd protect that part of me. Instead, you weaponized it for laughs. The snow fell harder now, coating their hair and shoulders. Ethan reached for her, but she stepped back. The reckoning. Don't touch me, Maya whispered, wrapping her arms around herself. The cold bit through her coat, but it was nothing compared to the ice spreading through her chest. Do you have any idea what you've done? Ethan's hands dropped to his sides. In the moonlight, she could see his face crumbling, the defensive wall he'd built beginning to crack. I'm sorry. God, Maya, I'm so sorry. I wasn't thinking. That's the problem. You weren't thinking about me at all. She wiped at her tears with numb fingers. I've spent years working through my anxiety, learning to cope, to function. That night at the restaurant was one of my worst moments, and you held me afterward and promised me it was okay, that we'd get through it together. I believed you. We did get through it. No, you got material for a joke. Her voice broke completely. You made me feel safe enough to be vulnerable, and then you used that vulnerability against me. Ethan sank onto the bench, his head in his hands. When he looked up, tears were streaming down his face. You're right. You're absolutely right, and I hate myself for it. His voice was raw, stripped of all pretense. When Claire walked in tonight, I felt like I was 22 again, trying to prove I was good enough for her. I know how pathetic that sounds. I'm engaged to you, the woman I love more than anyone, and I still let old insecurities control me. Maya stood silent, watching him break down. Part of her wanted to comfort him, the part that loved him despite everything. But another part, the part that was just beginning to find her voice, needed him to feel this pain. I was showing off, he continued, his words tumbling out between sobs. I wanted Claire to see that I was this great guy with these funny stories, completely forgetting that my story had a real person in it, you. The person who matters most. Forgiveness and renewal. Maya sat down beside him, leaving space between them. The snow continued to fall, creating a quiet cocoon around them. For several minutes, neither spoke. She listened to the sound of his breathing, ragged and uneven, matching the rhythm of her own wounded heart. I don't know if I can forgive you tonight, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. What you did, it made me question everything. If you could betray my trust so easily, what else might you do? Ethan turned to face her, his eyes red and swollen. Nothing. Never again. Maya, I will spend the rest of my life proving to you that tonight was the worst mistake I'll ever make. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging for the chance to earn it back. She studied his face, seeing genuine anguish there, seeing the man she'd fallen in love with underneath the foolish boy who tried to impress an old flame. You hurt me, she said simply. Deeply. I know. He reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, he took her hand. I will make this right. Starting now. We're going back in there, and I'm going to tell them the truth, that I was an insecure idiot who said something cruel and thoughtless. I'll apologize to you in front of everyone. Maya's breath caught. You'd do that. I'd do anything. His thumb traced circles on her palm. You are my life, Maya. Not Claire, not anyone else. You. And I need you to know that. They sat in the falling snow, hands intertwined, as the party continued inside without them. Slowly, Maya leaned her head against his shoulder, feeling the warmth of him through their coats. This doesn't fix everything, she murmured. I know. We'll need to talk more. Probably with a counselor. Whatever it takes. She tilted her face up to his, and in his eyes, she saw real remorse, real love, and real commitment to doing better. When he kissed her, it was gentle, asking permission with every movement. She kissed him back, tasting salt from their shared tears. They returned to the party hand in hand. Ethan pulled everyone's attention and publicly apologized, admitting his mistake and praising Maya's strength. Claire left shortly after, and Patricia hugged Maya tightly, whispering that she'd raised her son better than that and would make sure he remembered it. As midnight approached, Maya and Ethan stood together by the Christmas tree, watching the lights twinkle. His arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her shoulder. "Merry Christmas," he whispered against her ear. "Thank you for giving me another chance." She turned in his embrace, cupping his face in her hands. "Merry Christmas. Don't waste it." Their kiss beneath the Christmas tree was a promise, of honesty, of growth, of a love strong enough to survive mistakes and emerge deeper than before. Lessons. True love requires not just passion, but the courage to be vulnerable and the strength to protect that vulnerability in others. Trust, once broken, can be rebuilt, but only through genuine remorse, consistent action, and the willingness to face uncomfortable truths about ourselves. The measure of a relationship is not whether mistakes happen, but whether both partners choose honesty and growth over pride and defensiveness when they do. Love at its finest is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of two people who refuse to let conflict be the end of their story.